The automotive world continues to change and evolve. Small cars and sedans are now being replaced by something like this, the new Toyota Venza. This is a transitional product. It's very here and now, it's very trendy, and it's giving the current batch of buyers a lot of what they want, and I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons of that, so let's get started. Now you just saw a bit of the exterior montage. The front and rear of this Toyota is a bit different. It has a more Lexus style feel to it, and it's more modern. And this goes to show that what they're trying to do is attract somebody that is not looking for that truckish kind of rugged experience, and that transfers on the interior space. The frontal compartment where the driver and passenger sit, when you look at all the materials, like the door, the dash, everything you interact with is padded and super soft. It's not super durable like you would get in a truck, which gives this a more comfortable feel to it, a less rigid feel. It's great for most body types. You can fit huge jugs of water, the armrest is big, everything's padded, and that's a huge bonus to this compared to other products. Now, since it's raised up just slightly, you have a better command of the road without needing a step stool to get in. So it's that good bridge between like an SUV and a car, which is why they call it a crossover. The gauge cluster is easy to read. All the buttons on the steering wheel are stupid simple. All the physical buttons are Toyota great, with the exception of the center stack. And this is where this is a huge departure for this company. Now they've gone to the gimmicky, touch-sensitive center stack. Volume, can't tell by feeling it what's up and down. You just have to look at it and tap it. You have to peck at it with your finger, and all the buttons here are all touch sensitive. There's nothing that has any mechanical feedback to it. Then you get to the HVAC controls. There's some touch buttons here, but you have to use the touchscreen to change where your airflow is at. For example, if you want it on your feet only, gotta use the touchscreen. And let's talk about that. Toyota is on the bandwagon now with making huge screens. Doesn't matter if it's better, doesn't matter if it's more functional, it's just big because that's what the market's calling for. This giant slab of black plastic is marred with fingerprints, micro scratches, dirt and dust, and it looks horrible sitting up here. It is a huge eyesore and a big distraction because you constantly have to interact with this and touch it and look at it. So they've decluttered the physical realm. Now you don't have all these buttons to look for. Now it's all up here, line of sight. And that to me is the biggest negative of this cabin. But I said right at the start, this is a transitional product. It's very here and now. The back seats, super comfortable. You can ride in them all day long. It's much like a bigger sedan. It's great. And the huge addition, the hatch space. Somebody's like, why not just get a hatchback, like a Corolla hatch or a Civic? That's because this has a near RAV4 level of usability. It's monstrous. You have a lower load floor, and it's got a huge height, so you can stack things in there easily. The only negative back there is the tailgate. The electronic tailgate is really slow, like I complained about before in previous Toyota products, but that's a small gripe. Let's take this out on the road and see how it drives. Oh yes, the new Venza Hybrid. This is the only option, so it better work. All right, so let's talk about the things that you want to know if you're looking for a car like this. It rides very soft, and combined with the seats, the cushions have so much give in them. This is a very plush experience. If you're somebody that needs to be on the scale of more firm, more direct, this is on the polar opposite side. So the good thing is, combined with the softness, it is very quiet. And one of the big complaints I had about the RAV4 the non-hybrid version is the 4-cylinder in there is so rattly. So now with the hybrid version in here, it's a little bit quieter because you have the electric motor and it goes into EV mode more. And with the combination of the PED in the navigation you can enable, the car will remember your route and it will adjust when it goes into EV only or when it tries to charge its battery pack, and it starts to learn to become more fuel efficient. All of that makes this a much smoother, more trouble-free experience. Now, the side effect is because it's way more quiet, and the engineers purposely have been taking their hybrids and plug-in hybrids and trying to refine them a little bit more. There's more acoustic isolation, which is great. It just can be a little bit boring to drive, and I say this a lot about the Toyota products. They focus so much on who the intended person is who's going to buy this, that I don't know long term. This is just, it's so softened and every edge has been smoothed out to the point that I'm like, when I get out of it, I just don't think about it much. And maybe that's what people want. If that's the experience you want, everything's transparent, it's just quiet, it works, you're gonna love this. But if you're looking for a little bit more, you're gonna have to go to a different car. Now this has a CVT. It's basically the 2.5 liter and the hybrid system out of pretty much every Toyota product. You just have all-wheel drive, and I'll talk about that a little bit in the shop, but the whole thing with this, and I don't have a ton of experience behind the wheel of this car, but everything has to be transparent to the driver. You don't want to be distracted by anything. So the steering is very simple and numb. You don't feel a lot. The transmission is very quiet, and you never notice it that much until you put your foot to the floor. When you put your foot to the floor, then you have that CVT effect, and it just kind of holds the highest RPM for the highest amount of efficiency and horsepower from the engine. But when you're just cruising around, it is a super refined experience, and that's really one of the best parts about the new Venza, even compared to the RAV4 and some of the other SUVs in their lineup. This almost feels like the RX 350 to me a little bit, or the NX in terms of refinement. So if you're looking for that without the Lexus badge, it's great. Now, everything else about this is pretty much unremarkable, and I think that's by design. They clearly knew they didn't want to create an abrupt experience or anything that was going to trigger you or make you think on a test drive, oh, what's that? There's never a what's that moment about the Venza, and I'm going to leave it there. Let's head into the shop and see what this looks like underneath. Welcome to a quick crash course on the Toyota Venza, the new one. This is built on TNGA-K. That is the global architecture this is built on, the building blocks. And this is shared with the Camry, Avalon, the RAV4, and the RX 350. Now when you look at this, this is hybrid only, combined between the electric motors and the gasoline. It makes about 220 horsepower. So that's more than enough to propel this, and you have all-wheel drive, which I'll get into in a minute. But when you look at the underneath of the Venza, it is absolutely covered up every square inch with paneling. And this is on purpose. One of the key things they're trying to do with their plug-in hybrids and now their hybrids is refine them to near luxury car levels of quality. So that means filling in gaps in panels, putting sealers, foams. The floor pans are coated with an acoustic absorbing material. Same thing with the headliner. So they want to make this more quiet while reducing certain frequencies in the mid-range that come from road noise and tire noise. So you look at this, it's basic stuff. Strut suspension, you have an aluminum hub in the front, there's plenty of space, and obviously, again, this is shared with other cars, so you can get in here and change things easily. But let's take a look at the back. Now, before we get on to the final thoughts, we have to talk about this. I removed the plastic cover here. This is becoming more and more common with hybrids or plug-in hybrids. This is an electric motor. It's connected via a high voltage wiring loom that powers this and sends power through the differential to the rear wheels. This has removed the mechanical linkage from the front to the back. There's no drive shaft here anymore. And they're able to do this because they're making use of that battery pack that's already installed here. All they have to do is change the subframe. They can keep the load floor much flatter because they only have to run an exhaust pipe here instead of having a drive shaft jammed in the middle. The other benefit, you have more cargo capacity in the back. They can keep the load floor lower so you can fit more stuff and you don't compromise the back seat room. So in terms of packaging, this is way easier. Now the negative part, this is designed for urban driving like I talked about in the drive. This is not for somebody that needs to go off heavy trails, really bad inclement weather, or any serious off-roading. This is basically just flashes power to the rear wheels when you need it, when it's slippery or you're braking traction on the front. It's still front-wheel drive. So combined with the CVT, the electric drivetrain motor in the back, the electric motors in the front, there's a lot going on here. But let's get into the final thoughts and talk about the rest. Final thoughts on the Toyota Venza. Now there's a little bit here for everyone, and that is what Toyota is really good at. However, this is for more of a specific person, someone that favors the cruiser car spirit. This feels like a car on the inside. It has a softer edge to it. They stripped out a lot of the ruggedness. That's not trying to be that traditional tough SUV. And you can tell the minute you get in it and drive it. And that's a good thing, again, if you're somebody that values that. If not, you go to a RAV4. So let's talk about the interior briefly. The huge pros is it's super, super comfortable and it's set up for pretty much any body type. You can be big or small and fit in there. The infotainment is a disaster. I mean, functionally it works, but now everything's on a touchscreen that's way too big for the dashboard and the screen quality is not good, and now they've moved all the physical controls on the center stack to capacitive. Beat it to death. Try it and see if you can deal with it. I think something like a RAV4 implementation is way better, or the Highlander. Now, underneath and drivability, you only get a hybrid version here, so that may be a deal breaker for some people with this, but you're getting good fuel efficiency. Without even trying, you're going to be pushing 40 miles to the gallon. And this car's smart enough, when you enable the mode in the navigation unit, it will adapt to when it needs to charge or when it needs to just go in pure EV mode as it learns your route to work every day. So getting that 40 mile per gallon thing is not going to be that big of a deal at all. Now, in terms of drivetrain, this is getting to be really complicated. I'm almost wishing for a full EV here. But again, this is a great intermediate product. You should check it out, but I'll have a full review when I have this for longer. And I'll give you more like driving impressions and technical impressions then. Thanks. See you next time.